Rev up your engines!
Well, Happy New Year 2021. Here's some of the cars that people are really looking forward to in 2021. Of course, one of the big ones is the 2021 Ford Mustang Mach-E GT Performance Edition. It's the fastest Ford electric vehicle. Now, the regular base Mach-E goes 0 to 60 in 5.1 seconds, which for an SUV is pretty fast. Remember, it's not a Mustang, it's an SUV. The GT Performance Edition does it in 3.5 seconds, and that's close to the Shelby GT500. That is really fast. Still, you're not going to be racing any mid-engine Corvettes. I was in one that did it in 2.4 seconds, but still, it's really fast. Now, the next vehicle that people are looking at for is, of course, another Ford, the two-door 2021 Ford Bronco. People are all excited about getting their hands on one of these things. It's a 4x4, take it off-road, all new. Be interesting to see how they are. People can't wait to get their hands on them and trying them out. Now, the next one is the 2022 Honda Civic. They've got an interesting prototype. Realize that they're always naming cars weird. I mean, the 2021s have been out for a while, and it's just 2021. And sometimes as early as March or April, they start selling the 2022s, but they've really done a lot of changes on the Civic. They were always a little bit ugly, and now they're really a lot snazzier looking. I mean, just check one out. They really want to make the Civic stand out. They have the new SI and a new Type R with that same clean design. I mean, check it out. It is really smooth looking, I gotta say. I'd love to get my hands on one of those. And for those interested in extremely fast electric cars, there's the 2021 Lucid Air, which is going to have 1,080 electric horsepower. It'll go 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds. All-wheel drive. If you don't drive like a maniac and keep going 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds, they claim it'll go 503 miles on a charge. And last but not least is the 2022 Subaru Brz. If you check it out, man, it is sharp looking, I have to say. It's a very sharp looking car. It gets a larger displacement, 2.4 flat 4 boxer engine, and they're returning the 6-speed manual transmission for the people who are serious drivers. I gotta say, that's gotta be the best looking Subaru I have ever seen. I hope somebody buys one so I get to drive around and test it out for all you guys to see what it's like. And if you're listening, Subaru, why don't you send me one to try out? I'm open-minded. If something's good, I'll say it is. If it runs as good as it looks, hey, I might give you a glowing review. Who knows? But you gotta send me one so I can try it out. Well, the Germans are at it again cheating. Daimler is in hot water with the American government. They've been fined $30 million for holding back of all the recalls that they've been told to do with their trucks. Not their cars, but their trucks. Most people don't know, but Mercedes-Benz in North America now sells more trucks than cars. They own the big Freightliner, giant, 18-wheeler truck company. They own them. They've been investigated since 2018, and now they got a $30 million fine because they've been dragging their rears, taking care of what the government has told them to do in recalls, which they haven't done. They actually bungled 7 different recalls for their products. Because these are big trucks, right? If they were with the regular public, people would complain like mad, call their senators and congressmen, and then it would go faster. But these are big commercial trucks, so I guess people don't whine about that all that much. And as usual, the rich people get off easy. It's a $30 million fine. They have to pay $15 million of it within 60 days. But then $5 million have to go to, safety improvements. And the other $15 million, they might not pay anything at all. So, as usual, the rich guys get off easy. Imagine if you went to court and they said you owe $5,000 fine. They're not going to say, well, you can pay $2,500 and then pay $5 and make your house safer, and then maybe not even pay the rest of it. Come on now, it's not fair, but that's the world of corporations these days. As usual, it's the Germans being sneaky again. Remember, they did the Dieselgate, and then they tried to cheat the first time, and then they got caught the second time, and then they got some fines, but some of them they used to make Electrify America, so they're making money on that. That'll be a profit-making thing for them. Makes you wonder. Some of the Germans were convicted, I guess, in American courts, but they hid in Germany, so now they're not coming over here. So they're not going to jail for what they did bad. So I'm assuming that there's going to be no jail time with this, and the only thing that may happen is maybe some Germans will run back to Germany from the United States. Who knows? Intrigue of international finance. The guy for Nissan who snuck away from the Japanese courts and went back to his homeland of Lebanon, and from what I've read, nothing's happened to him yet either. Mitchell 340 says, how much should I pay for a 2020 used Frontier SV? I found 2. One is 100 miles, another is 2420 miles. Here's the thing. You're never going to get a great deal buying a vehicle that new. I advise to buy one that's 5 or 6 years and save a whole bunch of money. let's say the one with 2,400 miles. Hey, if you can save $4 or $5 grand, hey, there's nothing wrong with that. But if it's just a little bit, don't waste your money. Buy a new one if you're going to do that. Saving peanut money. If somebody's dumb enough to buy something and want to sell it with 2,400 miles when it's less than a year old, save a bunch of money on it. Don't pay too much. That'd be foolhardy. But I mean, you really want to save money. Buy one that's 5 or 6 years old. There's plenty of them out there. Going to save a ton. You might pay 40% of the original price and it might have 80% of its life left. If you're only saving like 20% and the vehicle's got 80% of lifespan left, what's the point? You're not saving that much. Buy them when they're a lot cheaper and they still got a ton of their life left in them. That's my philosophy. Very interesting. One Mitsubishi one says, Scotty, I got an 04 GMC Yukon with 220,000 miles, 5.3. When I add oil to oil changes, the dipstick doesn't read unless the engine is either running or has just been turned off. It hasn't had regular oil changes. Could it be sludge? What should I do? First, you want to make sure it's got the right amount of oil in it. This whole thing sounds a little bit fishy to me. What I would do, I'd warm the engine up so it's warmed up. Then I would change the oil and filter. I would measure what came out. Then I would look up in the book exactly how much oil the engine takes with an oil and filter change. And I would see how much came out of the vehicle. Maybe it's never been filled correctly, because that seems kind of odd to me. I've never seen sludge build up. See, if sludge built up in the dipstick tube, then you wouldn't read it either, whether it was warm or cold or whatever. The whole thing sounds kind of fishy to me. I think there's not enough oil in it, to tell you the truth. Now, 220,000 miles and it's got a bunch of sludge build up in it. I would say I would use a K&W motor flush. I'm not a big fan of motor flush most of the time, but with that mileage, and if it is sludged up, read the can, put it in, follow the directions, let it idle for a while, then change the oil and filter, and then see what happens, because it sounds fishy to me. It sounds more to me that it doesn't have the correct amount of oil in it. Because if you can read it right after you shut it off, you know, the dipstick's working, right? I think that you don't have enough oil in it myself. That's why you want to drain it all out, measure it, see what comes out. Now, if it comes out and it blurbs, then what you want to do is, since there's a bunch of crud in there, you really would be doing a good service just pouring some cleaner in the engine with the engine not running, any kind of good cleaner, engine cleaner, anything, and then as you pour it in, it's going to drain out through the hole and a lot of sludge is going to come out. If it's really bad, I would say drop the oil pan and then clean it up mechanically, but that's a lot of work. So try putting a cleaner in it first when you have it empty, and then it'll come all the way through and then drain out the bottom. And you're not going to leave anything in the engine because it's all drained out the bottom. If you leave it overnight, anything in it with the oil cap off on the engine is going to evaporate anyways. Good Scotty said, good morning. So if the best price on deal on batteries at Walmart, should I let him install it? Obviously. I hope it doesn't sound dumb. Well, actually, it's not a dumb question. It's a very good question. That depends on what type of car you have. If it's a Toyota, Ford, whatever, go ahead and let them do it. If it's a BMW, Mercedes, one of those, you have to reset the computer. I doubt they have the equipment for doing that at a Walmart. I really doubt that they do, because they need to be reset for the whole computer system when you change the battery out with one of those. If you don't want to lose your memory in a Toyota, Honda, Ford, you can get what's called a memory saver. You plug it in a cigarette lighter, you plug it in first, and then when they change the battery, you don't lose your memory. But you can't do that with a lot of the German cars because it will fry things, blow fuses. The German cars are so complex. Even when a car's turned off, they're running a bunch of computers. And if you plug that little battery saver in a cigarette lighter, it'll overuse that power and it can fry things. I've seen it happen with German cars. So if you got a regular car, okay. But if you got a German car, luxury car, Porsche, something like that, no, I would not advise going to Walmart and have the battery changed. You have to have a mechanic like me that has the equipment to reset everything when you replace the battery, because it'll mess with the computer system otherwise. You don't want to do that. Believe me, you get a car that the windows don't roll up, you don't have a radio anymore, the alarm system starts honking, all kinds of weird stuff can happen with those cars. They're over-engineered. Even changing the battery is a major endeavor if you don't have all the equipment that I have. Jesse Torrance said, Scotty, I love your car reviews. Could you do a review of a 98 Cadillac Catera? Found one with 51,000 miles. It runs good. Here's what a Cadillac Catera is. A Cadillac Catera has absolutely nothing to do with Cadillac. It is an Opel made in Germany. Understand that for a really long time, I think it was since the 1930s or something, GM owned Opel. So they sold a lot of stuff over here. They don't anymore. Somebody else bought them over a few years ago. But it's a German car. And I mean, if you can get it for dirt cheap and you want to drive it around as a toy, go ahead. But don't pay hardly anything for it, because nobody knows how to fix them. They're almost impossible to get parts parts for. When they did sell them, when they were new in 98, they were a real quandary car. Because if you had one and you took it to a Cadillac dealer, they said, well, these are really German cars. They're Opels. We don't know how to work on them. But if you took it to a Mercedes or a BMW mechanic, a German mechanic, they said, these are Cadillacs. We don't want to work on these things. And nobody ever really worked on Opels much in the United States anyways. Now in Europe, whatever they sold them as some kind of Opel, people didn't mind them. They were okay if you took care of them. But you can't get parts and hardly anybody knows how to work on them here in the United States. You can get them dirt cheap. If you want a toy to just fiddle with a little bit, go ahead. But don't pay hardly anything for it because they're worth nothing in the United States. You can't get parts. Nobody knows how to fix them. And they eventually do break down. But 51,000 miles, it's probably still got a lot of life left in it if people change the oil. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.